Good morning, dear students. Today we are proceeding our lessons in geography, whereby we're doing the river processes. In the river processes, we're looking some of the processes. The one of which we're looking, that's erosion. Today, let us look into the transport. We have to look into erosion and the types. Today, let us look into the transports, the main types of transport in a river. Each and every river takes the transportation, takes transport. There are main transportation systems of which a river takes. One of the type of transport which a river takes is the one which is suspension. When we say suspension, we're trying to mean that as the river is being eroded, as explained, it suspends. This is the transit. Small particles are held up by turbulent flow in the river. It takes small particles of the chemicals or the soils which are being taken up by the river. It transfers those particles. The second one is sortation. Sortation, in this case, we are trying to mean heavier particles are bounced or bumped along the bed of the river. Heavier particles again, they are bounced, they are being taken up. Heavier particles are bounced or bumped along the bed. They go down to the river. They are there to make something. By the end of the day, they pile up. That piling up, it's whereby it's making what is regarded as sortation. A solution. Now, the chemical part of the load, as the load is being taken, there's some chemical within that particular load. The chemicals are being dissolved in the water. The chemicals are dissolved in the water. The chemicals are dissolved in the water. The chemicals are being dissolved in the water. The dissolving of the chemicals, as the chemicals are being dissolved in the water, as the chemicals are being dissolved, you can see that is the one which is called it a solution. We are having another one which is traction. We are having traction. Traction, this is the heaviest materials is dragged or rolled along the river, along the bed of the river. The rolling of the road are being rolled little by little with distance. This is the one which is called traction. Now flotation. For example, this is the floating of the leaves and twigs of which they are being carried by the river. As the river is taking its course, it transports trees, leaves, all these things which are being rotated, they float on the surface of the water as the river is taking its course. This is the one which is called transport. Now, after transport, we have to look into the erosion. Let us see deposition. Once the river is eroded, after eroded, the things have been transported. After transported, they have been deposited somewhere. They have been put, they accumulate at a certain place. That place where they do accumulate is the one which is called deposition. Deposition occurs as the river slows down and it loses its energy. As the river is moving fast, sometimes it slows, becomes a flat area. At that flat area, it loses energy. It can no longer carry things. Then those roads which have been transported, they cannot be longer travel, or the river or the water cannot no longer push them. Because they cannot push them, those things are being deposited. Now, this deposited, because of that deposit, they becomes a flood. They are being flooded over there. The river or flooded over that area, so whereby it can no longer go that side, but the water is settled that they can no longer transfer things. Typically, this occurs as a river floods across a flooded plain. This happens when there is a flood that the water cannot travel, they cannot push anything, then the things are settled. Once these roads are settled, they become a deposit. In this case, where the water has been flooded, it becomes a plain. Or on that plain, it's whereby you can see that it's fertile, or there are people whereby agricultural practices have been taking place. This also happened during a low flow conditions. This is happening in a low flow condition. The low flow conditions. Now, this happens when the river was carrying some of the sediments, and those sediments have been deposited at that. For example, the larger, heavier particles are deposited first. Those materials which are larger, the ones which have been deposited first. The materials which are larger are the ones which have been deposited first because they are no longer taken. But those lighter, they are there to deposit later because the water still pushes them. Features of these depositions, for example, the features of which where the deposition can take place, for example, the deltas, rills, steep of slopes, that we call them the point of bars. At the same time, oxbow lakes, braided channels, and flooded plains. These are some of the areas where deposition really takes place. At deposition provides an advantage for agricultural reasons, whereby the land, they become fertile because of the chemicals which are being taken up, a solution of chemicals that have been deposited over that place. The deposition of that place becomes makes the place that is to be more viable, or becomes the place to be good for farming practices. All these are some of the areas of which we are considering. Now, let us see this process of a river. The process of the river is being shown as the way. For example, as the river is traveling, the water is flowing. As the water is flowing, the other things of which have been blown by wind materials. You can see there, it's written wind materials, blown materials, that they enter into the water. Now, at the same time there was a suspended load of which now they are moving, they are settled. Together with those materials, the road have been rolling. Down there, you can see they're rolling. With those materials, they're settling down. They're settling down. They're settling down. At the same time, the road are being suspended. As the road are being suspended, you can see that some of them, they are dissolved. They are dissolved road. Those things that go together with the water, you can see that the dots are materials which are traveling water because of the speed, they dissolve. At the same time, you can see that the bedrock as well there, some of them, they are suspending through the one, making the bedrock. You can see this has been there dissolved. There are also, it depends on the slope. If the slope, those are the slope failures whereby more they are concentrated down. If the slope is the place is steep, you can see that the materials travel fast, but when there is no slope, you can see that there are more deposition. Deposition is coming in because of the slope failure. It means the place is flat. Because the place is flat, they are settled. They are settled. It's whereby the suspension bloom. Once they settle down, it's whereby sortation takes place fast. At the same time, once sortation takes place fast, you can see that these things which have been suspended, they have been dissolved. They have been dissolved. Once they're dissolved, you can see that they make a lank curving. You can see by the end of the day, now they slide each other. It means more of the materials that have been settled down, they settle down at a place whereby it is flat. But the place whereby it is steep, there is no settlement of these rocks. The rocks are not settled down. You can believe me that this is the way on how the river takes its course in transporting, in eloding. That's the wearing of the band of the river. of the river bank. After they've been eroded, it's whereby the things are being transported, the materials are being transported, they travel together with the water and the river. After being transported, transported, we're going to see that where there is a flood, or wherever the slip is failing now, meaning to say that it's a flood, it's whereby we're going to see that there is a flood. That flood makes those materials or the road now to be sinked or to be settled. That settlement is the one which is called deposition. We see that a river is rested, the water is settled, no more traveling because the place is flat, and whatever it was carried by the river now is settled, becomes that's deposition. After that deposition, whereby we can see that there's some sort of sortation. Those things now they do accumulate sortation, or the chemicals do accumulate now relevant for agricultural practices, for example, farming and the like. With this regard, allow me to wish you the best and say have a nice day as you are paying attention to other lessons. Thank you so much. I appreciate for your intervention in my lesson. Thank you.